Hello, and welcome to what I guess will be episode 37 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a weekly chit chat all about the joys of sock knitting. My name is Andy, and I like socks, although lately I have been very annoyed by socks. But yeah, if you wanted to find me / this podcast on the interwebs, you can find me at Purlbug, Purlbug, on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry, although I'm currently taking a break from Instagram and Twitter, but who knows, I might be back after Labor Day, I might not be. But yeah, for sure on Ravelry. And then there is my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then there's the 10,000 Stitches podcast Ravelry group. Normally, I guess I'll make mention of notes. There's not going to be much for notes this week, but if you are looking for notes for any links or anything that I mention, if you are watching this on the blog or on the Ravelry thread for this week, everything will be linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link in the description box to the blog post for this episode, and then again, everything will be linked right below the video. So this is going to be a super duper short recording. I'm guessing 10 minutes maybe, because for one thing, I have, again, no finished objects and not really even a work in progress. And so I don't have much to talk about there other than just a fail. I have one skein of yarn that I can show off that I dyed. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the rules for the upcoming knit along, since this is the last episode that will air before we get into that, and there'll be a decent amount, like almost a week between when the next knit along starts and when the next episode comes up. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the rules this time. But let's talk about my failed work in progress, which is no more. So I had mentioned last week that I was going to be knitting the Pixel socks, and just kind of as a way to get my hands back used to doing color work and stuff like that, and this is how far I got. So I did turn the heel, and this is about as far as I got. I basically turned the heel and finished the gusset, and these do not fit. These are like an 81 stitch sock, and they just don't fit because there's no like stretch to it. So like, I can barely get it onto my foot at all. So this was knit with Deborah Norville Serenity, these two colors, and it's knit on my US size 1s, which are 2.25 millimeter needles, and it's just a fail. So I think what I learned from this is that I need to size up. So I am now doing a swatch for my upcoming project, which is going to be fireweeds. I'm doing a swatch for that on my US size 1.5s, which are 2.5 millimeter needle, and we'll see if maybe that helps a little bit, because there's just, like, the stitches are just so tight that there's just nowhere for it to stretch. So I'm glad that I did this, because I'm glad that now I know that, you know, my favorite sock needles are just not going to work for this, but it was kind of a bummer to get this far and then realize, like this won't fit on anyone's foot. Like, it just has no stretch. So yeah, bummer, but whatever. I actually didn't spend very much time knitting on it this past week because I had a lot of days where I just didn't knit because I just wasn't feeling inspired. Like, I'm sure everyone has weeks like that where even, you know, your most favorite hobbies, you just kind of naturally want to take a break from them. So I guess that's what I was doing with knitting this week. But I am excited to get swatching for the fireweeds because I'm super stoked to start those. And those will be the first ones that I do with my hand-dyed yarn. So the yarn that I will be using for the fireweeds is this purple that I dyed, and it's still not picking up the right color. Like, it is much more purple in real life than it's showing up here. So I'll be doing I never understand which one's the main color and which one's the contrast color. The darker color is going to be this purple, and then the lighter color will be this natural yarn. So yeah, I'm excited for that. Like I said, I just started swatching, like I'm 2 rows in, so I don't even have that really to show you that's interesting. But then I will show you really quick the yarn that I dyed last night. And I guess for this to make sense, so I had shown you this last week. This is a skein of red yarn that I dyed for the Water for Elephants socks that I'm planning on doing. And I mentioned that, you know, the pattern for that has kind of like a yellowy color as the contrasting color. So I dyed up this skein. And it's showing up a little washed out. It is more yellow than it appears. I don't know why it's showing up so washed out, but it's not super yellow. Like, It's a very subtle yellow, and I only use 2 packets of Lemonade for a whole skein, and normally I've been using 4, so it's very tonal. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to, maybe it'll show up. This part here is definitely darker than like these parts. Like, there's some parts that almost got practically no dye, like this part here got practically no dye, and then this got a decent amount more. But because it's such a light kind of pale color, I think it works fine. And I had thought last night, when the lighting wasn't very good in here and I couldn't really tell what I had gotten, I thought about just, over dyeing it again. But now that I've seen it today, I'm okay with it. Like, it's good enough, and especially because this one is so even and saturated, I think they will do just fine together. I'm super excited for that. So yeah, and I did wind up buying a skein today of the Lion brand Fisherman's Wool, which is their like 100% non-superwash wool, and it's like a worsted weight. I bought a big skein of that because we happened to be at the store and they happened to have it and it was on sale. And I'm going to play around with a little bit of that, doing some dyeing that is a little bit less useful for my socks, but something I want to try out. So maybe I'll have something to show for that next week. But yeah, that's that. And then I guess I will talk about colorwork rules, colorwork knit along rules, and then that'll pretty much be it, because even like personal chit chat stuff, I didn't do much this past week. Like, I went to work and I read a bunch of books, and that was all I did. So yeah, go figure. And because I have dinner or food out on the stove, I'm cooking our dinners for this week, and so Wesley's keeping an eye on it, don't worry. But I don't want to, he's also doing other things, so I don't want to leave that in his responsibility for too long. So let's talk about the next knit along. So the next knit along is going to be color work. I know I've mentioned that before, but it's going to be color work. It will run from September 1st through October 31st. I'll shut down the current knit along at when I wake up the morning of September 1st. So you guys, if you're watching this when this episode goes up, which will be Tuesday, August 30th, you will have, I think, a day to still get something in. So yeah, I will shut that one down on the 1st and then open up the new one. It'll be color work, and a lot of the rules are the same as they have been, right? Socks have to be started and finished during the time of this knit along, so between September 1st and October 31st. You can enter multiple finished objects as long as they fit the theme. Socks have to be adult size. They have to have at least, that much leg above the ankle bone, so they can't be like super shorty socks. They say they have to be adult sized. They have to be adult sized. I've rescinded the rule that they have to be knit with fingering weight. They can be knit with heavier weight yarns. Just don't be a jerk about it and, spin out a whole bunch of socks. What else? So a new thing for this one, because someone mentioned it or asked the question about it, for color work, I will also allow Christmas stockings, because someone asked if they could do a pair of Christmas stockings. So you do have to do a pair, because I'm assuming Christmas stockings are going to be knit on like a worsted weight or bulky weight yarn. So, you do have to do a pair of them. But if you want to do like Christmas stockings, that's fine too, because it is getting to that point in the season. So yes, those are totally allowed if you want to do that. Otherwise, how I'm defining color work is I'm basically defining color work as some sort of a design that is achieved using one or more separate colors of yarn. So separate skeins of yarn have to be used. Two or more. It has to be at least 2 or more. Separate skeins of yarn used to create your design. So for most people, I think that inspires thoughts of like Fair Isle sort of stuff, like stranded color work. That's totally fine. That's the majority of what I'm going to be doing. However, if you are not at that point yet, here are some other options for what you can do. I will take manually striped socks, right? So if you are doing a pair of socks and you are like manually doing the stripes, right? Like, so you're not using Felici or something, like every time you stripe, you're cutting your yarn and switching it. I will take that as long as it's, reasonable, as long as they're like real stripes. You cannot do just like a solid pair of socks with contrasting cuffs, heels, toes, right? It has to be a little more work than that. But like, if it's obvious, like, oh yes, that looks like a pair of striped socks and you did all of that manually, that's fine. That's kind of like the very like beginner novice level. And if you are, of greater skill level than that, I would, appreciate if you would do something a little bit harder, but that goes along with like the worsted weight. Like it's there for people who need it. Don't be a jerk and abuse it. So that's, very bottom level. If that's all you can do, then that's great. Submit it. I'm happy to have those. For people who are kind of the next step up. So like if you want to do something that, is a little bit more advanced, but is not stranded color work. Some other ideas I have are for socks that alternate rows, that kind of do like barber pulling, but make it very interesting. So the ones I can think of for that are like the broken linen stitch socks and then the broken seed stitch socks. So what those ones do is, and of course I'll link to them. And of course when the thread goes up, I'll link to these in there as well. But what those ones do is they basically alternate, like a light color and a dark color or whatever. And because of like linen stitch, linen stitch, you're slipping stitches every row or every other row, I guess. And seed stitch, like you're doing the purling. And so those produce some really cool effects, just doing every other row with your colors. And with those, like depending on how you do your stripes, it's not like you have to cut it every row. Like there's some way that you can have, if you're doing like one row stripes, like you don't have to keep cutting your yarn. If I can find an article for that, I will try and link instructions on how to do that. I have done it with some mild success, but not great success, but it is possible to be done. So that's options for kind of, I guess, maybe like intermediate or like advanced beginner, like if you want to do something with color work, but you're not at stranded color work, or you just don't want to do stranded color work. Those are some options. And then I heard a weird noise, but it's Wesley shuffling cards. And then, of course, obviously, like the more advanced stuff is stranded color work, stuff like that. So, as soon as I open up the thread, I will link example patterns, like the patterns I'm planning on doing, and then the couple that I just mentioned that are, a little bit easier to do. If you have a pattern that you think would work, or, a pattern that you want to share with the rest of the group, by all means, share it in the chatter thread. If you have questions about like, does this pattern count? Share it, link it, let me know, and I will let you know. But yeah, I'm super excited. I think once I get this sizing issue figured out, I will be very excited about doing the color work. But yeah, that's just about it. The only other thing I will mention is, and only because I've talked about it before, I got a new lipstick yesterday. I'm very excited about it. If anyone's curious, it's my first foray into like kind of expensive makeup. Like it's the Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On Lip Pencil. This was like a $20 lip pencil at Sephora. It's my first time ever buying anything from Sephora. But I have this really bad habit of like chewing on my lips when they get chapped, and it's really not good. And the only thing that keeps me from doing it is if I'm wearing lipsticks. I'm like, well, I guess I'm back to wearing lipstick for a while until I can break this bad habit. But yeah, this one is the 24/7 Glide On Lip Pencil in the color Bad Blood. And this is what it looks like on me. I really like it. It's a nice, good kind of blue toned red. Yeah, I really like it. So that's that, and I guess that will be it for this week. Sorry it's so short, but I really have nothing of interest to say. So like I said, my knitting hasn't been working out. I just haven't had an interesting personal life this past week. So hopefully next week will be better. By next week, I'll be able to talk to you guys about my first class. The class that I'm taking this semester is meeting for the first time tomorrow. I won't be starting teaching yet, but I'm sure I'll have other interesting things to talk about. So I will catch you all next week. Thanks very much for hanging out with me for all of almost 14 minutes now, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.